Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Beyond the Romance Drama Podcast slash YouTube channel. I thought I'd just add it in. It seemed like pretty fun. I don't know. Maybe I'll keep it. Maybe I won't. It has been a while since my last update. Life. But I'm glad to be doing a new episode for you, and I'm going to be discussing some of my favorite watches that I've started recently and some of the ones that I've completed. So I think I should start with the ones that I've completed. So I have finally finished Word of Honor. Oh my gosh. Took me months, not that it took me months to watch, but it's just like I started watching, got distracted by other dramas, got distracted by writing, by life, and I eventually picked it back up and I finished it. And I liked the ending, but I actually knew how it ended before I even watched the finale because I have no problem with spoilers, and I looked at spoilers and I saw some of the clips of the additional ending that was done, and I love the ending. I am so glad that we got a happy ending because when it comes to these male love dramas, especially like the ones in the wuxia genre and the like the Thai dramas and the Taiwanese and the Chinese dramas, like they don't like to give these characters happy endings. Forever bitter about make our days count. Forever bitter. I know they give us a alternate ending, which is canon in my heart in Love on the Line, but still better that they even did it with the original, like episode 9 and 10, Banfaya Panda. So in my heart, I feel like I'm going off on a tangent, but in my heart, Yushingu and Hao Ting are alive and well and living their life. So back to Word of Honor. So as I said, I like the ending. Like they became immortal. Like for yes, like you can't get a more happy ending than that. They were like, we're not only gonna give them a happy ending, we're gonna give them a happy ending for eternity, literally happily ever after. So Wang Kexing, played by Simon Gong, and Zhang Jahan, I love that we got our happy ending with them. Like they were through so much. Kexing got his redemption arc. I think it was a really good redemption arc because like he did some really shady ish things because he was out for revenge, and he got a whole lot of people killed when he made those the extra keys. Why? I don't know. But like, dude, did you not consider the fact that this could lead to way more problems than you anticipate? But Zhao Zhu, or Asho, as he loves to call him, I love that nickname for him. But he, like, when he learned the truth, he was angry and upset, of course, but he understood where Kashing was coming from, and then when Changling found out, that poor baby, I was like, this poor child, he has lost everyone, and then he's gonna think that he's gonna lose his uncle too, or his shifu, because he more called Kashing his shifu more than his uncle. But to me, that's their son. That is their son. Like that's their baby. I don't care anyone tells me that they're a family. And in my heart, also Guxiang and meaning our life. That wedding went off without a hitch. She got her amazing 2 rows of dowry. They grew up, had babies, and in my head canon, I want someone to write me a fanfic where Kexing and Zhaoshu are raising this, are like spending time with their chubby new niece, or their chubby new granddaughter or grandson, and like I want that. That's what I want. I want a fanfic. Somebody write that for me, where they're just like playing with their chubby grandchildren, chasing them around the yard, and like yeah, that's it for me. That's my headcanon for them. They're not fighting up on Ice Mountain. They come down occasionally to visit their family. Okay, like they can't be just like up in the clouds fighting all the time. Come on now. That can't be it. But I really like how Word of Honor ended. I think there's a couple more coming out. There's Legend of the Bat. I think that's gonna be kind of like that. That's fitting in this genre as well. And that one I'm looking forward to. There's a couple others. I should have written down their names. My bad. Um, that or I'll put the list in the description box below. And but I'm really looking forward to some of these wuxia dramas coming up because honestly, some of the other dramas that I've been watching kind of just like meh for me. I'm I finished Love Scenery. That one was kind of predictable. I started You Are My Honor, starring Dilraba and Yang Yang. And that one is kind of like Love Scenery 2.0. It's almost the exact same plot where but slightly variation. Like they're more adult. They're older than the characters in Love Scenery would have been. And like the Raba's playing an actress, and he's playing an aerospace engineer who's at this point in his life where he's trying to figure out, do I want to go back to being an aerospace engineer, or will I go working in financial work because the job is more stable, more money, so I can help provide for my parents. I think that's an interesting dichotomy for a character, because usually like Yang Yang or like our characters like him, they usually, like have their careers, and they're these like really impressive men, and everyone like falls at their feet for them because they're good looking and rich. And I think it's interesting that you have a character like him where he's at this point in life, he's technically unemployed, and he is struggling with if he is going to be good enough for her, and if he's going to, and like does he have to sacrifice a relationship with her to be successful, or to like to focus on work. So I think that's interesting for this one, and I really like their chemistry. They have really good chemistry. I like the first show that I have a clear memory of watching her in is Love Designers, and I really like that one. She had a really good chemistry with her male co-star. Didn't quite like the niece, the sister in that one, because like that was a whole exercise in black culture appropriation, because she was doing the whole, I'm a rebel, so I'm gonna listen to all this hardcore rap music and wear cornrows and braids and try to act all tough. Like, stop it. That's not black culture, okay? Black people, stop doing this whole thing. I need, and I'm gonna get into this later in the show because I'm gonna talk about Penthouse 3, but I need Chinese, I find in particular, do this with their dramas where if they have a character who's rebelling, they appropriate black culture, like wear braids or cornrow in traditional black cornrows and traditional black styles, and big baggy clothes, and listen to like hip hop and try to talk like they're gangster. And I'm like, stop it. You want to rebel? Fine. You can put your hair in a ponytail and rebel too. You don't be using the good girl image that wants to stop rebelling, and you form some common sense and find some leeway to work with your brother. Stop it. Moving on. But You Are My Glory is good. I really enjoy that. And another one I recently watched and wrapped up was Beloved in House I Do. And this one is another male love drama. It's a Taiwanese one, and it stars Aaron Lee as Jin Yu Zhen and Hank Wang as Shili, the two main characters. And this one has so much potential, and I think it just felt wasted at the end. It's 12 episodes, but they only really get together in literally the last 5 minutes of the show. And I'm like, you wasted 12 whole episodes on this, especially when there was where I think a lot of things that was unnecessary. Like they brought in a host ex of Jin Yu Zhen, and I'm like, why? Why is this guy here? Like, no offense to the actor, like he's a fine actor, but the character was completely unnecessary. If so much time was wasted on things like flashbacks or daydreams that they had, or scenes with again the ex that was unnecessary. Like the main conflict could have been when the mother came, but then that would have been wrapped up quick, because then she was like, okay, you guys like each other, I approve of this, that you guys are all sweet, I love you guys, you're my sons, be together if you want. And she departed and went on her way, and we could have had a progression of their storyline where they actually got together. And if you needed a conflict, it could have been possibly the fact that like Eugene is the boss and Shili is like his subordinate, but he's also a director in the company the metalwork company that they were running. And I it kind of reminded me of Fighting Mr. Second, where we had so much time wasted in developing these, in creating unnecessary drama with these characters. And I'm like, why? Just give me them together. I just have a show where the couple get together like at least halfway through, and the rest of them is just like them discovering who they are as a couple. Like we could have finally, the conflict could have been like them living together, and then like, okay, how do we navigate living together and working together? That could have been the conflict. No, we got an ex that was unnecessary. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. It was disappointed. Yeah, at the end it was just like, that's it. And that's one of the worst reactions you could ever get. I think I could ever give a show where at the end I don't feel satisfied. I felt like it was a waste of time, or that the storyline was a waste of time. As you wasted the actors' time, you wasted the production crew's time, and just like, you could have given us more. Like, at least give us a 13th episode where they're actually together. So I'm going to move on to shows that I recently started. And one of the ones that I recently started is The Devil Judge. And I love The Devil Judge. This one is written by Moon Yoo Suk and, directed by Cho Jung Kyu. And this one is kind of a the synopsis is during a time of chaos, a judge turns the court into something like a reality show and punishes evil people mercilessly. So it's kind of like a dystopian world, but not completely dystopian because like the world hasn't like completely disintegrated or like fallen apart. But it's that you have this where people are being judged in a court of law, but it's all televised, which is kind of like something that has been happening on TV for like I would say probably 30 years. Because remember we had the People's Court, and you had things like Judge Judy. But this is the first time we've seen it with a Korean show, and the concept taken from a Korean perspective. And I think it's really interesting because I think what the writer is doing is he's talking about a lot of issues impacting society now. And I think not only in Korea but around the world, especially I think again America, because a lot of Korean shows, if they're referencing anything international, a lot of it applies to Korea, American politics. But it's talking about it, like they discussed right wing politics within South Korea. South Korea, as we know, is extremely conservative, and they have like a lot of right wing politicians, conservative politicians, and if you follow like South Korean news, you know that there have been a lot of issues with how immigrants and workers and workers from other countries, especially from Southeast Asia and South Asia, working there who've been exploited and treated extremely badly and abused. And that's something that they're dealing with within the actual society, and it's being touched on in the show because, and then it kind of reflects kind of like I think the president in the Devil Judge is kind of supposed to be like a parody of not only right wing leaders in South Korea, but I think also in America as well, because this guy is very much like Donald Trump, and like he talks about kicking out foreigners and saying that they're not Korean, even if they have Korean citizenship, or even if they were born in Korea. He's talking about him hegemony, where like creating like the pure like I would say preserving like a pure South Korean Asian South Korean identity and race. So like again, that's going into like kind of like white supremacist or I should say supremacists and imperialistic ideology. So that's interesting to see in a drama. And then it also talks about they talk about I think a little bit about colorism, but I'm on episode 10 was the last episode I watched, so I think they're really going good. So like the main character G is the main character, Kang Yo Han, played by Ji Sung. He is this lawyer, and I think he's so badass, but he's also so good. Ji Sung looks so good in these suits. Like bless the costume designer. K drama that cost stylists never disappoint me when it comes to putting men in amazing three-piece suits. They know how to style these people. And Johan does not leave home looking less than his best. And Ji Sung is, I think he's playing him like extremely well because he's kind of this anti-hero where you think that he doesn't have that he's willing to sacrifice his morals to achieve his ultimate goal of revenge. And he's like, I am playing the system the way the system wants to be played, because he's like when it comes to the judicial process, he's like money talks and people walk, and it's about the money and it's about the people of the power. It's not really the justice system. The justice system is easily manipulated, which is the co-lead Jin Young, who plays Kim Ga-on, who he's learned like he thought the justice system was all complete black and white, and he learns it's not. Like there's gray areas to the law. And I think his character kind of does that. His character is kind of leaning, goes from straightlist and is leaning slightly into becoming a slight anti-hero, and he's leaning into the shadows where his idealism is and where Kang Yo-han dwells. And I think it's interesting to see a character make this kind of progression instead of going the other way around. Because the thing is, like, people think that Kang Yo-han is cold, and he is cold. They think he's without feeling, but he's not. And that he's not compassionate, but he is, because but he shows it in little ways. And he does fight for the little man, but he doesn't boast about it, which I think is the amazing thing about him, which makes people misunderstand who he is. And so like Gaon is learning that the system is easily manipulated by the people in power, and Johan is trying to tell him, if you want to fix the problem, you have to confront it first. You can't pretend that it's not broken, which I think is another thing that's being pointed out in the show. But I'm going to talk about two things that I don't really like about the show. So in episode 5, there was this male character who was a rapist. And what they in this world that they existing in the Devil Judges, they have an extradition treaty with America. Why? I don't know. But extradition treaties exist, but the way how it is like if when they sentence someone, they send them to America to be imprisoned. So I'm wondering, I believe that that's supposed to be a commentary on the justice system in America, where America, it has like all of these prisons. But I think it's also supposed to be a commentary on the fact that like men who are like sexual offenders, like who rape women and who get away with things like that in South Korea, need to be firmly punished more in South Korea. But it's not being really addressed. That particular aspect is not really being addressed in the show, because what happens is that character is chemically castrated and then sent to a prison to in Texas, again, super conservative state, and like the characters who are on the prisons filled with like white men, black men, whatever, and they're all jeering, and like you're is the implication is that he's being sent there to be raped as a punishment. And I don't agree with that at all. I think that's an extremely dangerous messaging and misinformed messaging, and like rape is wrong regardless. Like no one deserves to be raped. And like they're talking about ethics of chemical castration. That is a good discussion to have, because that is something that has happened to sexual offenders, especially people who are like pedophiles. Like that was a thing in the states. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure if it's done in South Korea. I would have to research that, but I know it did happen in the states. Like they would chemically castrate like sexual offenders, and what that means is so they would like alter their hormones so like they don't get erections, whatever, because they're trying to say if you're an offender, we're going to remove the hormonal component of you becoming aroused by these heinous acts. So there's that, but then you're equating homosexuality with this punishment too, and I don't agree with that, especially when you know in South Korea that people like members of the LGBTQ community, like homosexuality is still very much stigmatized there. It's like their communities are still very much marginalized. So I'm like, that was, I think, not handled very well within the show. And another thing that I don't like is a character called Jung Sona, played by Kim Min Jung. Now she is the main antagonist in this between Johan and Gawon, in the fact that she has history with Johan and she is clearly obsessed with him from the time they were kids. And there's an episode where she kidnaps him and she sexually assaults him. And like it's like she kidnaps him, has him tight, and she like rubs herself against him. She forces her kisses on him. She touches him without his permission. And I'm just like, this is sexual assault. And I need writers, whether they're male or female, to acknowledge that men can be sexually assaulted too. It is not sexy. And that's supposed to be, and I'm wondering if that's the whole thing, because like this character's supposed to be like sexy, and she's she's a dominatrix. Like she does, like her job is a dominatrix, but like her thing is because she's obsessed with him, she like, I'm like, this is crossing boundaries. Writers, you need to like establish that this is sexual assault. A woman touching a man without his permission is assault, is unwanted, because if the roles had been reversed, it would be a problem. And it is a problem because it is her. It doesn't matter if she's a woman or not. What she's doing is something I don't like, and it's something that keeps happening in the show, where she forces kisses on Johan. And I'm like, I need someone to tell this woman, keep her hands off this man. Like, see and don't touch. Leave your hand alone. This is sexual assault. Stop harassing this man. Stop touching this man's body. Stop rubbing yourself against him. There ain't nothing cute or sexy or femme fatalish about this. Please stop. But apart from those two things, I am liking the show, and I'm looking to see how they like what other issues they discuss in the show. I need Gawon to water his plants more, like, because he ended up staying at Johan's house a lot, and I'm like, dude, if you're gonna be spending more time at Johan's house, take your plants and take them to this man's house so you don't forget to feed your plant babies. But I'm really enjoying the characters. I'm really enjoying the show. I'm gonna talk a bit more about it going forward, because I'm not sure if we're gonna have 16 or 18 episodes, but I'm really liking it. And again, as I said, I'll talk about it some more. So this one I think I've been going on a bit long. So another show that I want to talk about, and this one might be a bit of a rant, but it is Penthouse 3. And I don't know what happened with Penthouse. Like, this season one was crazy bonkers, and I loved it. I was there for all of the melodrama, because it's a makjang, so you're expecting ridiculousness, you're expecting over the top drama, you're expecting over the top action, over the top set design, fashion, everything. And I love season one. Season two, not as much, but I was like, I need closure on some of these storylines. Guess what? We still didn't get them, because they wanted to create season three. Now, I have not watched season 3, and I will never watch season 3, because of the introduction of a completely new and pointless and unnecessary and ridiculous character, Alex Lee, who's supposed to be the twin brother of Logan Lee, played by Park Eun-suk. Now, this is completely madness and it's racist, it's anti-black, it's extremely offensive, disrespectful, rude. Every negative adjective I can think to apply to this, I will apply. Because if you've seen the pictures, you know that Alex Lee is this supposed to be a character, I believe, from New York, who is Asian, not Afro-Asian, he's Asian, and he's wearing hideous locks, covered in ugly tattoos, wearing a whole mess of fashion, and I'm like, supposed to be what? Is he supposed to be a Asian, like clearly influenced by black culture, clearly influenced by black people? And it's first and first cultural appropriation. Like our locks mean something to us. Locks have spiritual meaning for black people. Cultural meaning for black people is something that connects us to our heritage, to our past, and to where we are, and to our identities, very identities as black people, because there's a history to this. There's a history to how our natural hair was stigmatized and is still stigmatized by white people as well as Asian people. So the audacity of using our locks to represent someone who is cruel, who is a character that no one would like, and like, and saying that this is something supposed to represent, he's supposed to be cool but yet still be like this badass. Stop it. We don't think it's cool, and there's going to be a few black people who would excuse this, because there are black people who would excuse any kind of BS as long as they get access, because they only care about being validated by white people, or even Asians in this instance. They only care of not being seen as the angry black person, the angry black trope. They don't care that the fact that they themselves are being belittled, because they don't want to they want to fit in. That's it. So there are people who will co-sign nonsense like this, because for them they say, oh, it's not a big deal, because they want to be liked. I and many black people who have seen this and who see it happen repeatedly, because it happened in Backstreet Rookie and in other dramas, whether they're Chinese, Japanese, or whatever, and white people do it all the time. We are offended and we are sick and tired of it. And you can't keep doing this and say you don't know. South Korea is not a country that exists in a vacuum. The people are one of the highest educated people around the world. You have the highest speed internet. You have access to education. These are things that black fans of dramas and K-pop talk about relentlessly. You pay so much attention to American media, but yet still you don't pay attention if when black people talk about cultural appropriation and anti-blackness. Doesn't jive and it doesn't make sense, and we are not buying the excuse anymore. It's offensive and we want it to stop. Please make it stop. I, as a fan of Korean dramas, I get it hurts me when I see things like this happen all the time. And it hurts the fact that we have to, as a black person, I have to say, I kind of expect this to happen. I expect some kind of anti-blackness to happen. Or if I see a black character, where I hold my breath and pray and hope that something offensive isn't said or done about this character or to this character. And that's a horrible feeling to have, where you're watching something, or even you're listening to the music and you're saying, please don't use the N-word. Please don't use some derogatory language referencing black women or black men. Please, it's terrible, and it's 2021. The excuse of you're not on it, of you don't know, doesn't fly anymore, because you are being constantly educated about it. There are black people who live in South Korea. There's Afro Asians who live in South Korea. Black people from all over the world live in South Korea. You have art, you have music produced by black people. The excuse of not knowing doesn't fly anymore. And I refuse to watch season 3 of Penthouse, and I will never recommend it to anyone to watch again. I don't even know if I'll ever tell anyone to even watch to watch the first or even the second season, because I don't want to give any kind of promotion to this show. Anytime I'm talking about it, I'm going to talk about how disappointed I am in the writers, and the writer who is Kim Sunuk. I'm going to talk about how disappointed I am in Jo Dong Min. I'm going to talk about how disappointed I am in Park Eun-suk, the person who played this horrendously ugly character, because I'm going to say it was ugly because it was offensive. And I'm going to say that I hope this never happens again from anyone involved with this show, that it better never happen again in another drama or another film, and that they take whatever criticism was given and learn from it, because we as black people, we are tired of being constantly belittled and degraded, because this is not appreciation. Appreciation is you saying, oh, I love your hair, and leaving it at that. Appropriation is where you're going to put it on and try to use it as a caricature. I try to use it as a character. Our hero is not something for you to put on like a wig. Our hero has meaning for us. Our speech, our dialogue, and this is another thing they want to like to appropriate AAVE, which is African American vernacular, which is something speaken not only by African Americans but also Black people in the diaspora who do interact with African Americans, and like this is and it gets integrated into our different dialects and into our different accents across the diaspora. But if you're going to be talking to AAVE, don't. You know why? Because if I ask any of these people, and whether in the K-pop or in the industry, okay, who are you imitating? Because AAVE has the dialects where it like different. If you're talking about American, like people in Florida speak differently to people in Atlanta. People in Atlanta speak differently to people in Chicago. People in Chicago speak differently to people in New York, and so on and so forth. You want to talk about the Caribbean? Everybody in the Caribbean does not speak like Jamaica, and then the accents that you guys try to do to imitate Jamaicans is offensive because it sounds nowhere like Jamaican patois. Eh? Like the Caribbean is made up of dozens of islands, which each island has our own distinct accent, dialect, and way of, and even the way we move our bodies is different. Our mannerisms are different. We are not a monolith, which means one does not represent all. You want to talk about people in Africa? You have East Africa, West Africa, South Africa, North Africa. And then within those, we have hundreds of different countries with their own different cities, and they each speak different languages and dress differently and act differently and have different food and have different and different religions. We want the same way how I am able to differentiate between a Korean to a Chinese person to a Japanese person, the same way we are expected to differentiate between South Asian to Southeast Asian and East Asian. You can afford the same to do for Black people. We are all not American. Yes. We all don't speak the same way. We are all not thugs and gangsters. And even then, when you try to say that you're respecting thugs and gangsters, you're not, because you're also characterizing them and you're making them into monolith within their own subculture. Like all rappers don't act the same way. All Black female singers don't act the same way. And the way you see them in music videos is not who they are in real life. That's still that's a persona. Yes. When I see actors on in K dramas, I don't expect them to behave the same as their characters in real life. Please realize the same thing about Black people. Who you see in a TV show, in a film, in a music video is not who those people are in real life. Don't come to us and expect us to be acting like the people you see in media. First and first, that's a lot of that comes from, especially if you're watching white American media, a lot of that is controlled by white American media, and they themselves have their own stereotypes and suppositions about Black people. And if you're all you're watching is white American media, and you're looking at how Black people are being portrayed by white directors or by white writers and producers in white American shows, again, you're gonna have these skewed perceptions of Black people, because those are all based on stereotypes and racist stereotypes that white people have about Black people. So if you want to consume us, if you want to consume, and you can't consume us because we're not things, we're people. If you want to enjoy our culture, if you want to truly say you are appreciating our culture, if you appreciate us, learn about Black people beyond the scope of what you see in a music video. Learn about Black people beyond the scope of what you see in an action movie. Learn about Black people around the globe. Take a globe and pin it and go and learn about a country. Go and learn about the cultures. I'm from Barbados. Go and find out about Barbados beyond Rihanna. If you want to learn about Barbados, if you want to learn about Jamaica, go and learn about Jamaica beyond Bob Marley or Usain Bolt. If you want to learn about Trinidad, if you want, go and learn about Trinidad, go and learn about St. Vincent, St. Lucia, like Martinique, Montserrat. We have all of these countries. Guyana, you have South America, like you have part of the Caribbean as part of South America. You have Guyana. Go and learn about these things. If you want to learn about American culture, go and learn about the history of Black people in America. In Canada too, because we have racism in Canada too. It's like not hunky-dory up here. Learn about Black people and other cultures, because I think there's a lot of offensive things are said and reference to people from, again, in South Asia, like India. Go and learn about the difference between Hinduism and Muslim. Go and learn about the difference between people in the Middle East. Go and learn about the difference between Israel and Palestine. If you're going to be talking about these things in dramas and films, Learn about them beyond what you just see on TV. Please. I'm gonna finish my rant here. This is like I didn't intend to make this long, but I think it was important. It was something that I've been wanting to say for a while. Again, like I'm a few weeks behind on my recap, but this is something that I felt was important to say, and it's not something I'm not going to talk about again because unfortunately, like Black culture appropriation and racism and xenophobia is something that I've seen happen in dramas before and in film, and it's something I'm going to keep talking about because it's something important to me. I talk about it as a film critic. Um, Also with North American media and British media and European media, this is something that is close to my heart. I will keep talking about it. If anyone's offended or upset by this, too bad. It's my show. I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. And everyone is going to agree with me. Again, too bad. I have my opinions and I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about from personal experience, about from reading and doing research and speaking to other people. And I just think it's important that me as a fan of K dramas and Asian dramas in general, I am not going to ignore things that I say is problematic just because I like it. The fact that I'm talking about these things is proof that I do like it because I want better I want better for the actors. I want better for the writers and the directors. So that way I can have a more enjoyable experience and other people can have a more enjoyable experience. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm just asking for a little consideration and sensitivity. Please go and take some courses in cultural sensitivity. I am willing, if anyone who's watching this has the power to, I am willing to give courses on cultural sensitivity because I think this is something that is necessary. Because I myself talk about these things on Twitter, like when people say things that I think are untoward about K-dramas, whatever. I tell people this is like go and learn a bit about Korean society, learn about Korean culture. I speak to people who are Korean and I make sure that I'm learning every day. And I just ask that the same thing happens for other people, that you learn about Black people as well. And again, we are not a monolith. Our hair is important to us, our clothing, our dialect, our music is important to us, and all we're asking for is respect and consideration. And with that, I will end this recap of Beyond the Romance. Again, like what I talk about is Beyond the Romance of K-dramas, and I thank you for everyone who's been watching me and who has been like leaving comments, and I've been really enjoying this. And it has been really, I think, something that I really enjoy and I hope to keep doing for a really long time. If you haven't seen it, please go and watch my previous episode, which was a special episode I did with my guest Christine Cole, who's the PD or producer director of Law School, which is streaming on Netflix. She was a fantastic guest. I really enjoyed her and I appreciate her taking the time to speak with me. And also I've started doing something I want to do a little bit more often, where I speak to other film fans about films. So recently I spoke to my friend Daisy Sim about The Wailing by Na Hao Jing. It's a 2016 horror and thriller, and we spoke about that, and that's under, if you go into my playlist, it's going to be under Carolyn Talks, and we talk about that. And you can follow me on Twitter to follow the shows that I'm live tweeting, including The Devil Judge, using the hashtag dramas with Carrie. And in the description box below, I'm going to put the shows that I'm currently watching and shows that I recently finished and where you can watch them. And please, you follow me on Twitter at Carrie CNH12. That's hashtag, sorry, that's at CARRIECNH12. Follow the hashtag dramas with Carrie. And on every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, I co-host a live tweet where me and my co-host we live tweet sci-fi films and shows. And for August, we have Avatar August. We are live tweeting season 2 of Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is available for streaming on Netflix. And that is it. I am tired.